US presidential elections are just over 4 months away, and some people are enthusiastically supporting Trump and will therefore vote Trump. Some people enthusiastically oppose Trump and will therefore vote Biden. I don't think anybody enthusiastically supports Biden, including Biden himself. But a third-party candidate is doing better in this election, at least in the polls, than any third-party candidate since I think Ross Perot in the 90s, unless I'm forgetting someone. I don't think I am. Some polls put him at like 15%. That is a lot for a third-party candidate. It shows that people are unhappy with the major parties. It shows that people like some weird ideas, which we're going to talk about soon. But one of the side issues there is, and then I don't think many of his supporters support him because of this, but is his much clearer support for Israel than either of the other candidates. Now, that's not difficult with one of the candidates enthusiastically supporting Hamas and the other candidate being upset with Netanyahu for not saying that the previous election was stolen and therefore not clearly taking a side, although he is better on Israel than Biden, at least in rhetoric. So RFK Jr., is he Israel's great hope? Should the pro-Israel U.S. voters vote for him? That is the topic today of the Daily Objective. Welcome, everyone. Hey, Daniel, what do you think of RFK Jr.? Should we enthusiastically support him?
Well, I mean, if you're enthusiastically supporting pretty much any presidential candidate in, I mean, not just this election, but in generally today's world, until you act, maybe you are living in some really good country that has some better options. I think there's something wrong. You should probably check your ideas and see if you should be enthusiastically support. Just a correction, I don't think he's a third party candidate. Technically, he's an independent, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many things about it. I mean, I watched the one of the recent interview from like a week or two ago. It was him on the Piers Morgan show, Uncensored. And yeah, you said this. He has a nice rhetoric, but something I have noticed is that he didn't really have any like actual prescriptions. Like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do if I'm president. If I'm president, I will fully support Israel, even with the occupation or something like that. Or I will fully support Israel, completely destroying Hamas, getting back all the hostages. He only like alluded to it by saying, well, you have to finish the war, you have to, I mean, hostages have to be returned and Hamas has to be disbanded. How else can you have peace? So in a sense, he directed to it, but he didn't actually say if he's gonna do it, and that's something I'm afraid of whenever we talk about politicians. Is when they are out of office, they a lot of them speak greatly. They have great ideas. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. They will support it. They will support Israel. But once you are in office, once you actually have this, and the way I'm thinking about it, it was similar to Biden. After October 7th, I mean, the support for Israel from Biden, from Anthony Blinken even, was like immense. I mean, what was the statement from Anthony Blinken? It was something like, as something about friendship. I think as long as
Yeah, Israel can defend itself if it has to, but as long as the U.S. is around, it will never have to.
yeah, I mean,
Or can fight alone, I think, was
yeah, yeah.
something
I
to that
mean,
effect.
yeah, I mean, it's this like, yeah, because after October 7th, in a sense, if you didn't support Israel, you would get some actual pushback. Imagine that time. But now when it actually takes some principles to support Israel, now that Israel is fully in Gaza, now that Israel is like actually fighting the war, at least to probably the biggest extent we could expect. now it's a problem. And I think, you know, I think it would be similar with RFK. This crazy world, but if he actually gets elected, I don't think he would be any different. I think once you actually are in power, once you actually encounter the system, once you have the full power to, the full power to enact your policies or to basically, well, one, have all the power, but also have all the responsibility, I think it quickly changes how you act. And especially if you don't have strong principles that will guide your actions. And I don't want to accuse any politicians of not having principles, but generally they are not the first people that I think of when it comes to principles.
Yeah, and in that context, like it's important to remember, I don't think RFK Jr. has ever been elected to anything, right? But he is a Kennedy. And look, he has free will. It's not genetically, it doesn't have to be the way he is. But th that is a family with a certain tradition that I don't think he's really parting from, and he's certainly not parting from it in the way he talks. So one of the things I saw in preparation for today was his interview or a video, part of his interview on Cenk Uygur's show from, well, the video was from yesterday, and this part was about Israel. And of course, he knows who he's talking to, not just in Cenk, but in Cenk's audience. So, he's clearly talking to Cenk's audience, and he says, "Look, I'm super pro-Palestinian." He actually said, "I'm pro-Palestinian, but of course, as people say, I'm anti-Hamas. Hamas is bad for the Palestinians." Now he's still making arguments that are better than what you hear from the other two candidates on this specific point. But he says it and he packages it in a way that he thinks maybe will resonate to some extent with Cenk's audience. There was another thing I saw. I wrote down, so it was that, oh yeah, on a different in a different interview, that he's trying to craft a climate policy that, quote, makes sense to skeptics and activists alike. And so, historically, RFK Jr. is well known as an environmentalist activist. He, that has been his career pretty much. And now he wants the votes of people, and he knows that he can get a good chunk of Trump's voters. And so he doesn't want to be seen too clearly on one side. I mean, skeptics and activists alike. First of all, I don't like the word skeptics because it assumes you're targeting only people who say, well, there is no such thing as man-made global warming, as opposed to people who say, you know what, like leaving the market free to innovate is the best way to solve any problems that exist or may exist. So yeah, generally, I think he is a politician, even if not one that has had actual success in politics. Race says in the chat, helps that Trump has Jewish in-laws. He can't be anti-Israel because that will make for awkward family dinners, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but when you talk about Trump, that actually might be a consideration that affects policy. So yeah, you never know. Yeah, and thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says a Palestinian, Sirhan, is in jail for the death of RFK Jr.'s dad. The murder of RFK Jr.'s dad in 1968. And this is another thing that RFK Jr. brought up in that Cenk interview to show that he's pro-Palestinian. Is he said he went to meet with him. He argued against the death penalty. So yeah, he's even when it comes to like directly personal stuff, he's bad on that. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, literal second coming of Finkelstein with his, my parents. Yeah, so you mentioned this like climate idea, how he's like trying to appeal to both sides. And I do see it. It's unfortunate. It's the unfortunate, like, basically how the modern world works, because there's so much like, I don't know if misinformation is the right idea, but there's so much dogmatism about the idea of climate change. Yeah, I was recently at OCON at Objectivist Conference, and we talked about the package deals. And there is a certain package deal of climate change that it has the actions that have to be done about it with it. Basically, if you say you believe in climate change, if you think climate change is happening, then automatically you have to associate either the Green Deal or some sort of action against it, some sort of government action against it. And if you don't think a government should do something about it, then you are against the idea of climate change. And we see it, I mean, I see it especially when it comes to Slovakia with one of my politicians I have in mind, which is really sad because I really support him. But yeah, you see it in RFK, where in a sense he cannot deny uh, climate change, but he also cannot deny that like governmental action has to be done about it. So in a sense, he has to say, well, we'll do sensible policy, and it could be something like, I'm not sure if he supports it, but it could be, well, we support climate change, but let's do nuclear reactors. Let's just incentivize nuclear reactors or things like that, but still would believe in some governmental action. What else did we? Yeah,
Well, one of the policies he has on energy is to ban natural gas exports. So yeah, in terms of
yeah,
kind of trying to play both sides, he has that part. I just want to say for people in our audience who may not be familiar with objectivism, you mentioned package deals. I'm just going to read what Ayn Rand said about this. So it's a logical fallacy that Ayn Rand identified. This is a quote from her essay, one of her best essays, The Metaphysical versus the Man-Made. She says, package dealing is the fallacy of failing to discriminate crucial differences. It consists of treating together as parts of a single conceptual whole or package elements which differ essentially in nature, truth status, importance, or value. Yeah, if you take the package dealing out of politics, then you pretty much take all of modern day politics out of politics. Um, there was something here I wanted to reply to. Oh, actually, I don't want to reply to this. I just want to read it. So Stedman says Razi, his own family disowned him, distancing themselves from him. Said he has problems, hint mental. Yeah, well, you can take the Kennedy out of the Kennedys, but you can't take the Kennedy out of the Kennedy. He's still a Kennedy. He's still a politician. And yeah, I still, well, technically, again, he has free will, so he can de-Kennedy ties himself, but I don't think he has done that. Something that I didn't actually know because I don't really pay that close attention to him unless I'm researching him for an episode. But Jonathan Honig mentioned to me in our production meeting before this show uh, is that he said that what was it that Ashkenazi Jews
yeah.
are.
So it was, so he was talking about COVID-19, and I think that was the time where he I'm not sure how prominent he was before. I think the first time I heard about him was during the sort of COVID era, where he was at least described as like anti-vaccine, although he said, he's not anti-vaccine, he just wants more more research into it and such as. And one of the things he said, and he recently doubled down on for some reason, was something like that the COVID-19 disproportionately affects Caucasians and Black Americans, and in a sense that it affects them more on average, and it affects less on average Ashkenazi Jews, Chinese, and I think Finns or something like that. Uh, uh, and just to talk about it a little, and he used like, oh, I have a study, or there is a study for that. It's not racism. It's reality. It's just a fact that it happens, and you could have. I think when you look at statistics, I think on average it did affect. I think it did affect Jews less, and it did affect, like, let's say, Black Americans more. But again, there could be like so many like reasons for it that, yeah, just taking like one study and applying it automatically is weird because he was implying there is some sort of like racial thing behind it or some genetical thing behind it. And again, like this all, even if it is true, it's such a like weird thing to like bring up uh and later like double down on. Like, yeah, it affects Jews less. I mean, I'm not saying anything. I'm not and it affects Chinese also less. I'm not saying there's there's any you're kind of getting the sort of the people who call themselves the race realist, which is a PC word for racist, I've learned, which I'm not accusing RFK of, but there is a similar, when they say, Africans have less IQ. I mean, I'm not saying anything should be done about it. It's just fact. There is uh, I mean, in a sense, package deal is kind of the theme of the episode today. In a sense, there is some sort of association, some sort of package deal that, you say, oh, this group has lower IQ. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't say what should be done about it. I don't say anything, but there is some sort of like automatic association you are supposed to take from it. And similar when RFK says, well, COVID-19 affects Jews less. I mean, I'm not saying anything. There is a certain negative feeling you are getting from it, even if it doesn't mean it. So that's why, those statements are a bit problematic.
Yeah, show me a racist who doesn't have a study. They all have studies showing that whatever group they dislike is bad in some way, or there's something wrong, or some sort of unfair advantage, and they're yeah. Susan Susan says RFK believes all kinds of conspiracy theories. I think that is literally probably close to true. I don't think there are many conspiracy theories that he doesn't believe,
I
and
mean,
one of them with COVID-19 was, other than the racial one, is that it was manufactured. Like the whole thing was manufactured. Now, again, the thing with conspiracy theories is you're expressing a certain idea with no evidence to support it. So for it to have been manufactured, people had to willfully manufacture it, and if that happens, if you have evidence, bring it forth. If you don't have evidence, don't say it, because it makes you sound crazy and stupid. And yeah, I think that's the case here.
yeah, something to remember about conspiracy theories is because someone said he believes in all kinds. You'll never find a person who believes in one conspiracy theory. There is a certain like change in the way those people think, so it automatically stacks up. Like you'll never believe someone who just believes the election was stolen. They probably also believe in some sort of like deep state. They're probably pretty skeptical about 9/11. They might even be skeptical about certain kinds of genocides, or they are definitely skeptical about COVID, about vaccines. So you'll never find like a person who just is skeptical about one conspiracy theory. And that's why, especially if you are an enthusiastic supporter of RFK, that's when you should be really skeptical, because I think when it comes to life, but probably even when it comes to politics, the way you arrive to your ideas is really important. So even if Donald Trump stumbles upon something correct from time to time, uh, it's never actually right, because the way his mind works is there is no principle behind it. It's pure pragmatism. It's pure, just I said this and this is the reality. And that's also how his waters work. Basically, whatever he says now is a reality. And that's why you should be really skeptical of politicians like Trump and RFK. And I mean, I cannot think of specific example for Biden, but I could imagine it for Biden too, is when their standard for arriving to the truth is not actually reality based. It's not actually, you cannot make a logical connection. So in a sense, RFK would be elected and he could be a good president or he could be a bad president. I have no way of knowing, because he doesn't have any way of convincing me that the way he arrives to his position, his ideas, it's actually legitimate. In a sense, it's similar, when you are doing a math test and you're supposed to show your work. You just have the answer. I have no idea how you arrived to that answer. I need to know the work to see if you actually understand what you're doing.
Well, let me help you out with that. He's not going to be president, and he wouldn't make a good one. And luckily, we're not going to find out, or unluckily, because whatever we have instead is not going to be much better, but maybe a little bit less scary. Still not sure about that. Jesse says, "Why is Ashkenazi still a thing outside of which synagogue you go to?" Well, it shouldn't be a thing even when it comes to which synagogue you go to. Don't go to synagogue. Reject faith. And in a sense conspiracy theories are a form of faith or very similar to faith. And again, that you have to reject, you have to not want to see any evidence for anything. So somebody here in the chat says, we watched the election get stolen live on TV. What does that mean? What did you watch? Like, what did you see that proves to you that the election was stolen? And that's a rhetorical question because the answer is nothing. You saw a result that you didn't like, and then you heard some stuff, and then you decided that that's the case. And the same person later says also there's evidence of U.S. development of bioweapons in Chinese labs. Again, you don't use words according to their definition if you use the word evidence there. So yeah, people, and I think, by the way, this is why RFK Jr. is doing so well in this election. It's mostly, and the fact that this, lifelong Democrat from the kind of left wing of the Democratic Party is taking away so many votes from Trump because of what Trump has made the American right into, which is a super conspiratorial bunch who actually most of his voters believe that the previous election was stolen, which is an insane conspiracy. It's the number of people who would have to be involved in something like that. You cannot be rational and believe that stuff. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, I'm Ashkenazi from my mom's mom and I got COVID. Yeah, I'm also half Ashkenazi and got COVID. That's yeah, we have I don't know if we've proven him wrong because I don't think he said you can't get it, but yeah, look, the stuff that conspiracy theorists say again requires them to reject actual evidence, actual knowledge in exchange for a kind of earthly form of faith.
Yeah, and since we are talking about conspiracy theories, one more thing, think about when it comes to conspiracy theory, never argue the actual evidence or merits of it. That for a conspiracy theorist, there is no way of arguing him out of his position based on like actual evidence. I mean, just to take an example of the stolen election, you could like come out we had the election in 2016, which Trump won, and the election in 2020, which Trump lost. This is we're gonna have another election soon, and this is what you'll hear. If Trump loses, the election was stolen, obviously. If Trump wins, well, luckily we have prevented the stealing of election. So no matter what happens, it will always fit into the conspiracy theory. And there is no way of like actually arguing them out of it. There is a certain, as I said, there is a complete disregard for reality when it comes to conspiracy theory. That's why you can never argue. It's an epistemological problem on a deep level. It's not just the idea that you have this, let's say 9/11 conspiracy theories, and if you show enough evidence, they'll be like, oh, okay, I see now. I do believe it was done by. I don't believe it was done by. It was an inside job anymore. I actually, believe the main story now. There is no way to do it just through evidence.
Thank you, Kelly, for the super chat. Kelly said, read RFK's book on Fauci. He doesn't rely on one study. I'm going to pass on the book recommendation with respect. I was like just watching him for a few minutes and it's more than enough for me. Like seeing him battle Cenk is always is always enjoyable because anybody who annoys Cenk, I enjoy watching that, but no, I don't think I'm going to read his book. I would be interested in seeing him in one of those debates, but again, only for pure entertainment purposes. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says gods do not exist, so no God met Moses. Dean says I'm Ashkenazi and I have a very, very low IQ. I've met you, Dean. I don't think that the second statement there is correct, but it is possible, despite what some race realists might say. The person who says the election was stolen asks if I presented evidence, would you accept it? Yes, if it was evidence. If it was evidence, I would accept it as evidence. But conspiracy theories rely on not having any actual evidence, let alone anything that comes anywhere near proof. You know who really dislikes conspiracy theories? Nikos. And Nikos is coming back tomorrow. He will be joining me on an episode where we talk about Israel and Ukraine and why it's the same war. Ukraine, of course, a country that was attacked, and for some reason, many on the American right, many of the conspiratorial people on the right, really support the savages in that case, oddly enough, while supporting Israel. Not all of them, but we're going to talk about that. I think that's a very important episode that maybe we're months too late with that, but that will be a show to watch. Another show to watch is the show that's coming up in a few minutes, the reality show, where we will be debunking some of the most popular pro-Israel arguments. I already saw that the first comment in the chat was upset with us and accused us of being Muslim. So this is going to be a fun episode, and I'm sure the live chat will be fun as well. Make sure you tune into that. It's coming up. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
And just quickly, I'm putting the contact to us, so you can send us all your evidence. I'll have fun reading it. And also the link to the reality show is there, so make sure to join us. Thank you, Razi.
Yeah. See you in a minute. Bye.